Great Mother says no harm shall come to your boy.
Good.
And welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And with me is Ariel Rosenberg from Asherah's Orchard. In fact, let me pull that up right now, and so I can the link is in the description right now. Asherah's Orchard. Let's see. Let me pull it up, and you guys got to go subscribe. Give Ariel some support, man. Go subscribe to Ariel's channel, and go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I keep meaning to tell you all this time, but I never get a chance, or I always forget. But so it's actually pronounced Ariel, but I mean, the only reason I didn't say anything before, a lot of people mispronounce it, but it's really no big deal.
Yeah, man, no, for sure. We should definitely. I just switched up the background real quick. Yeah, go subscribe to Ariel's Asherah. I'm sorry, Asherah's Orchard. I was going to say Asherah, and I said Ariel. Asherah's Orchard. Ariel Rosenberg. There we go.
Thanks.
Go hit that subscribe. See how I got the bell hit. I get notifications, and you guys should do the same. You should definitely do the same. It's a great channel. And today, as you just saw with that intro, what that was that's from the show HBO's Rome. And that is a depiction of a prophetic ritual. So that was Attia, the mother of Octavian, and he was taken captive, and she wanted to know, is he going to be harmed? And so they performed their ritual. They slit the throat of the bull, let the blood sprinkle on the person of interest, and they look at the signs of what's going on. They pay attention to everything, and it gives them the prophecy. And in that case, Octavian will be fine, which he was. The old Latin proverb is whenever a new Caesar would come out, like Marcus Aurelius or whoever, they would say, to him may he be as lucky as Augustus and as great as Hadrian. I'm sorry, Trajan, and as great as Trajan. And those are the two, because those two particular emperors did the most for the borders of Rome and made Rome extremely powerful as an empire. So any Roman emperor was compared to those two after that. But anyways, that's another story for another day. I want to get into this great mother religion and Attis, the rites of Attis. Any thoughts?
Just a quick thought before we start off with that.
Yeah.
So this idea how the emperors, they get compared to, who is it, Hadrian and Trajan, you said?
Trajan and Augustus.
Oh, sorry, I was a bit distracted. So anyway, I wonder if there's anything like the same way how, I mean, obviously it's a parallel. I think you could find this within any religion. It's not like a direct connection, but the same way as how there's like, may you be blessed like this person, or like you definitely have that parallel within Judaism, how like the forefathers and the three forefathers and the four foremothers,
right.
That there's a lot of connections with them as well, and then also other figures throughout the Bible. So I just thought that was interesting.
For sure. Now let's get into it. It's like, so this is the craziest story that if you need to know this story for the history of religions, and any Mary Beard textbook, whatever it is, any religious source books, whatever, they're going to know this story. And I'm going to tell you right now, is that during the Hannibal Wars, when Rome was a little baby, and Macedonia and the Seleucids were the real, like, get out of our way, we're the rulers of the world. The Ptolemies, the Macedonians, the Seleucids, and Rome and Carthage were like, yeah, we're gonna fight over here on this side, and but little did they know that Rome was going to be the great one. Anyways, back in that day, 200 BCE, during the Hannibal invasion, 204, the Romans got a Sibylline prophecy that the enemy could be expelled and conquered only if the Idaean mother was brought to Rome together with her sacred symbol, a small stone reputed to have fallen from the heavens. This might be a meteor, for all we know. I'm not really sure if that's true or not, but it could be. Her identification by the Romans was the goddess Maya, Ops, Rhea, Tellus, Ceres, contributed to the establishment of her worship on a firm footing. By the end of the Roman Republic, it had attained prominence, and under the empire, it'd be the most important cult in the Roman world. Can't stress that enough. The roots of this goddess from Crete, from the mountain of Ida in Crete, and her rites were brought to Phrygia. This is what the story tells us. Homer talks about this too, that Azizios, who was laying with Demeter, brought the rites of the Great Mother to Phrygia. There's another version where Attis is the one that does it, so those two are interchangeable in that. Anyways, the Phrygian rites become a big deal. Her statue was, people flocked from all over the world to go to this statue to give offerings and pray to it. So the Romans were like, we have to have this. The Symbolism prophecy tells us to get this Great Mother, bring it to Rome. And this becomes like a trend, a theme, the Sibylline oracles, the Sibylline religion. And it sort of starts off pagan, and then the Jews start taking on this Sibylline stuff. You get Revelation, you get Sibylline oracles that are Jewish. And then the Christians start using it, and then it becomes completely Christianized. But that Sibylline religion started off one day as a pagan book or prophecy. You get the Sibylline books and the Sibylline oracles, which are separate, but they're interconnected in a certain sense, where the same type of people are using them. Anyways, let's go through these slides real quick, and then we'll talk about it. You have the Great Mother characterize essentially the same qualities, prominent among them, universal motherhood, right? Her mythical attendants. I'm jumping down because I just want to I'm just trying to highlight a few things. The Corybantes, wild, half-demonic beings. Her priests are the Galli, castrated themselves on entering this. Hold that thought when I get to why and all that stuff. Why? Self-mutilation was justified by the myth of her lover, Attis. This is going to get into some stuff, right? Some mysteries and Christianity in a second. The Phrygian version was that Zeus, because there's a lot of versions of this story. Ovid's Metamorphosis is the most commonly known version. That's the one that most people read. That's the one most people talk about. This Phrygian version, Zeus inseminates the ground, from which a ferocious androgynous being, Azizios, I always get this word wrong. I tried to practice it before we started. I'm not even going to say it. Just read it. Is created. Dionysus succeeds in removing Azizios, I think I said it right, male parts. All right. Now, the blood is born an almond pomegranate tree. Now, the Dionysus thing is not in Ovid. That's a different version. The Dionysus has nothing to do with Ovid's version. Anyways, by putting an almond pomegranate seed in her lap, the nymph Nana becomes pregnant with Attis. Attis grows up the companion lover of Azizios. King Midas convinces Attis to marry his daughter, Violet. Azizios crashes the wedding, drives everyone mad, and Attis castrates himself under a pine tree. Zeus grants that Attis' body never decay. Oh, by the way, he dies. He dies from the castration. Also, keep in mind, I did a whole video on Ehrman. Ehrman's story. And we know that Ehrman is tied to Attis, also Tammuz, which is a big, this is where we're going to get it, because this is down the line in these slides. We're going to get into the dying gods. These dying gods. Castrates himself and he dies. Zeus grants that Attis' body never decay, that his hair grow, and that his little finger respond by twitching. And the Ehrman thing, Ehrman is a beautiful youth, and Astarte finds him and chases him around, and he castrates himself, dies. She mourns over his body, brings him up into heaven. The warmth of her body makes him a god, and he comes back down to heaven as the healer Asclepius. But go ahead, say what you want to say.
Oh yeah, so there's a few interesting things here, though I don't want to go too in depth if we're going to, if there's like slides on them later. But So first thing, like directly on this slide, I'm noticing a lot of parallels between Attis and David, and given they might just be more archetypal ones, but if you could go back to that slide.
Sure.
All right, so let's see where. The other one.
Okay. Oh, this one.
Yeah. So here's something I'm noticing. First of all, from the blood is born an almond or pomegranate tree. There's a tradition in Judaism that the tree of life was there's a bunch of different possibilities, but some of the contenders are one of them is a pomegranate, potentially because the pomegranate, the legend is that has 613 seeds, and the 613 representing. So here's here's like an interesting kind of was a tangent, but it's how Jewish tradition goes. So you have 613. There's 613 commandments or mitzvot in the Torah, and the Torah is also likened to wisdom, and wisdom is likened to water. Water is likened to life. And basically, within this, you definitely could see how that tradition comes about. Also, because of I forgot what the other thing I was going to say about that. But when you get to the almond tree, this is actually something I've done a lot of study on, because the word is shakhed or shekhed in Hebrew, which means literally means watcher, or like the one who waits.
Okay.
And the reason that it's considered to be the tree of life is because it's the first tree to bloom in the spring. So it's a sign that spring is coming, that life is coming, and that the winter is over. And so because of this, I'm guessing there's probably a correlation that it must have been the first tree that was created or something. I don't know. You could probably.
Well, we're gonna get into the pine tree, so hold that because this is gonna make a lot of sense when we get through these rites.
Yeah, just the other thing that I was going to say is how it says that Attis's body would never decay and that his hair would continue to grow. There's this one I don't know if I don't think it's understood literally, but in Jewish traditions, David Melech Yisrael, David the King of Israel, Chai Vekayam. He lives, he is still living, he lives and is still standing.
Oh wow, cool. That's interesting. I can definitely see what you're saying there. Now look, all right. So here's the deal. This became the ritual that the Roman imperial cult and the people in Phrygia were, in the mystery religions, were doing. This was a very, very, very. So the way we look at Easter, and I'm not just picking Easter randomly. They're both related to the springtime, right? And it's Holy Week for Attis and Cybele. March 15th was the day of reeds, and they brought the reeds in, and they brought the trees in on the 22nd. The whole shebang was March 24th to the 27th, where you have a day of blood followed by the day of washing after 3 days.
Holy.
Now, just doesn't that sound kind of crazy? Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm not. You know what? Just hold that thought. We'll get back to this in a second. Let's get through these rites real quick. All right.
Definitely.
Arnobius against the nations. What of little branches of the tree decked and girt round with garlands of violets? Do they not signify how the mother adorned the pine with the earliest blossoms as memorial and testimony of her sad misfortune? So he's explaining the why they bring the trees in, the branches and the reeds. Do they not commemorate the sorrow which the tower-bearing mother, together with tearful Azizios, lamented the boy, with the meaning of the fasting from the bread to which you have given the term castus? All right, now check this out. The pine tree, which you always introduce on appointed days into the sanctuary of the mother of the gods, is it not symbolic of that tree which the mad and unhappy youth laid his hands on himself, which the parent of the gods consecrated as a solace for her grief? Now, I'm gonna keep going because I just want to get to a point. All right, the Phrygian rites. This is actually the wrong slide. Okay, the day of blood. This is what I wanted to get to. Frenzied zealot thrust a knife into his arms, gashes them, the mother goddess to appease. wild whirlings are regarded as a mystic rite. Let's go back. Okay, on this day, the Galoi enter a state of ecstatic worship. You saw that in the video where they were dancing with an ecstasy. They look like a bunch of Bacchanals, basically. Those who have chosen to give their lives in service of the goddess take a sharpened potsherd and cut off their testicles. The testicles were apparently but in a sacred box and placed in the cellar, Magna Mater's temple. All right.
Just one comment on that.
Yeah.
I know at least in Rome, the tradition was that, or I think this was in Rome at least, that they would take their testicles after they castrated themselves and they would throw it like they would throw it over their shoulder, and that wherever it landed, that they were the house where it landed was responsible for clothing the new priest, as well as being blessed with fertility.
Yeah, exactly. Castrated. Okay, so why? The mutilation was justified by the myth that her lover, the fertility goddess, emasculated himself under a pine tree. Okay, we get that point. Kaibali. Oh, I got these mixed up a little bit. Okay, the reason was this: the problem of desire. The body is radically incomplete and is plagued by desire. Desire is the sign that all humans are radically incomplete. To continue in desire is to accept permanent incompleteness. Now, this is such important to Christianity because you have in the priesthoods in the church the idea of not having to marry, to give yourself up to a life of priesthood and celibacy. These ideas I shouldn't say they come right from, but these ideas are heavily influenced by this cult of Attis. The idea of no desire, just give to the priesthood doesn't marry and stuff like that. There's definitely something going on there, I think. And let me get to this point real quick. So the day of washing was the last day. It was also called the day of rejoicing. Where is that one? Thought I had it in here. Anyways, the day of washing, it's also called the day of rejoicing. And where did I put the rites of the day of washing? I thought I had it in here. Anyways, whatever. Day of washing was the last day, and it was a day of rejoicing that life goes on, that resurrection. And like you see with Christianity, you have the day of mourning, Easter, 3 days, followed by resurrection, rejoicing. Right? I'm just saying, I'm just pointing some I think some very, very simple but obvious connections happening. And what you have is, and now here's the kicker. You can say that there's not evidence for this, right? I'm just pointing out some commonalities. Fine, sure. Maybe I am doing that. But the Christians in the 2nd century saw the same thing I saw. They were known as the Nacenes. And the Nacene preacher gave this hymn to Attis. If you've watched my channel, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. And they applied this hymn that was given to Attis to Jesus, that Jesus was the dying God. And what happened after this, these Gnostics Christianized the Mysteria. The Christianity became the new cool hip mystery religion on the block. And a lot of these Mysteria ideas get adopted by the Christians. Eucharist, baptism, those type of things. And I just wanted to relay that these rites were huge in the eastern part of the Roman Empire, right where Christianity was born. What are your thoughts?
So, I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of this that you can actually see in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. I don't know why I'm calling it the Old Testament. I'm a Jew.
Yeah,
but yeah, so the interesting thing here is that I forget, did you grow up religious at all?
Well, I grew up in a Catholic, no, very, very secular, but Catholic, just like, culturally, I guess. Nobody Nobody went to church. Maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. Sometimes it would be Easter, and we'd go, nah, no, we'll do it next year. Like that's how little we went. Like we maybe went once a year, maybe. And so
are you familiar with the character? His name is I don't even know how it would be translated into English, but essentially, I think he's referred to in English maybe as Nathan the Eunuch.
yeah.
So that's not his name in Hebrew. His name is Natan Melech Hasaris. So there's a few things we have to kind of look into to understand what this means. So the first is, what is a saris? So on one hand, it could literally just be a servant, because there's this kind of, it's a cultural context of many of the servants of the king being castrados so that they couldn't, affect the royal bloodline. But the other, the reason why we know this isn't the case here is because his full name is Natan Melech Hasaris. So it's saying that his name is Nathan the King, the Saris. So here it's saying Hasaris, he can't both be a servant and a king. So it's very clear that here Hasaris is referring to him being castrated. Now, a king can't be castrated because he can't give forth a royal line unless he already has produced his royal line and he's castrated himself afterwards. And one of the things that's interesting here is that, if I don't know enough about this, if there's like instances of castrated kings throughout history, but I suspect that probably they became king before they were castrated. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been allowed to be king.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about Attis in this context, right, in Phrygia, and right down below them is the Syrians in the island of Cyprus, where Adonis is sort of not a equivalent, but like sort of a similar role. The young and beautiful god who dies and he suffers and he sort of gets mourned over. The weeping over Tammuz, the weeping over Adonis, the weeping over Jesus. Okay, in the book of Ezekiel, where the angel talks to Ezekiel and says, "You see this right here, the weeping for Tammuz. You'll see abominations even worse than this." Why would they say that? What's so bad about weeping for a god? It's because it's such a sacred rite. It's so sacred that they're doing it in Egypt for Osiris. They're doing it in Macedonia. The Samothracians have a different god that they mourn over. There's this dead god. Yasion's one of these gods. This dead god, and it's dying. This god dies and resurrects every year. It's an agricultural phenomena. It's to get right to the roots of it all, which Ezekiel does do this. Ezekiel gets right to the roots of it all.
Nice
Tammuz. Yeah. Tammuz, Demutzi. This was the Tammuz Demutzi is the one who influences all these other gods. This god who is the shepherd, he's anointed. He's a prince. He's a shepherd. He's anointed. He is his lover, or sometimes in some cases his sister, whatever. Which is the same thing with Yasio. He gets slain. He gets brought down to the underworld. He's dead. Wintertime comes. The savior goddess has to go down and resurrect his body and bring life with him. The dead are resurrected upon the resurrection of Tammuz. And the Eleusinian mysteries have this aspect of where Persephone goes down. And Persephone takes a bite of the pomegranate. And instead of being cast out of paradise, like Eve for taking a bite of the fruit of knowledge, she's stuck in Hades and can't leave. But what happens is, and this is there's different versions of this, but one of the versions, this is from the version that translated by Kyle Ruck, where the deal is struck between Demeter and Hades or Pluto, where you can allow Persephone to rise back up for springtime as long as Adonis has to go down in her place. So Adonis is the suffering god in that case, and he's he's Tammuz basically. And so it's they. What's so fascinating about all these myths? They're all so different in so many ways. Don't ever say they're the same thing. Don't ever say they're copying each other. Not doing that. There's the differences are important. They're very, very large differences, but at the core of it all is that agricultural layer, the death of the world, the death of plants, the death of agriculture. What happens when during wintertime, people don't breed as much? You're trying to survive. You're trying to get through the winter. But then when springtime comes around, guess who comes around with it? Eros. Eros comes and the ox gets stung by the gadfly, and people have their desire again. People are out in the springtime enjoying life, mating and loving each other, and that's where that's the resurrection of society basically. So this is my last point. I know you want to jump on this. Last thing I want to say is this. Oh, because there was a super chat, and this is what I was going to get at. Thank you for the super chat, Gaius Julius Windex. Hail Magna Mater. Thoughts on Attis influences of Christ. And this is what I was leading up to. I think what happens with Christianity is, because this is a huge mythicist talking point, is that how can this guy be a real person if we can clearly see where they're getting his ideas from? Here's what I think happened. You have a Jewish preacher, apocalyptic preacher named Jesus from Nazareth, and he's so well articulate. I'm completely speculating here, so error or alert. This is not proven. This is my own opinion. Okay, speculation time. I'm just going off on a deep end. I'm speculating. So this guy, he's very charismatic, because people don't worship you if you're not charismatic. Some random unimportant, uneducated, not charismatic guy is not going to be praised and worshipped long after he's dead. This guy had some skill in delivering whatever it was, prophecy, sermons, whatever he was doing, the teachings he was giving, whatever they were, whether they're related correctly in the Bible, I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe some of them are real. Who knows? The point is, whatever he was doing, this guy left a mark on his followers. He goes down to Jerusalem for the Passover, winds up getting killed. Now, when somebody dies, somebody who's important, who they think is the Messiah, what's your first reaction going to be? Suffering Messiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel. Also, on top of that, you're going to look at, like Ezekiel does, with the weeping for Tammuz, the weeping for the dead God. So I think what naturally happens after Jesus is killed is these sort of tropes enter into the narrative naturally. They just happen. It's not like people are trying to go out of their way. Like, they are just weeping for this guy, right? They're weeping for this guy, and that becomes part of this movement. And then he becomes the martyr. He becomes the suffering servant that was prophesied in Isaiah. And then so that's the Jewish side of it. But you also have these groups of people known as the Hypsisterians and Phrygia, who Paul is talking with, and they're worshipers of Sabazios, who also happen to be the same movement that branches out of the cult of Attis and Cybele. The original cult of Sabazios was Magna Mater, or not Magna Mater. It was Cybele, which is Magna Mater. But I'm talking about in the Phrygian sense. Cybele, Sabazios, and Attis. And so they're looking at Jesus as the new Attis. Hence, 2nd century Nicene preacher style. It all makes sense. All of it adds up. Why they thought this guy was a different version of, they thought this guy was like the fulfillment of the dying God, like Attis and Tammuz, but he was also the suffering Messiah. So you have a clash of worlds, the Jewish world and the Greek monotheistic world of the Phrygians, who worship Sabazios, the Father God. That's my take. So to answer the question, and thank you for that $20 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. You are awesome. That's my take on how Attis influences Christ. And that is why you get this. I've talked for a while, and I'll let you talk now. That is why you get this. Hymn to Attis, blessed one, whether born of Kronos, Zeus, or Rhea, I loudly hail thee Attis. You might as well cross off that word Attis and put the word Jesus there, because that's what the Phrygian Nicene preacher thought. That's what Hippolytus relates to us. They took this hymn. This is an Orphic hymn, and they said this was really a prophecy about Jesus. He's the corpse. He's the dead God. He's the suffering God. Egypt calls him Osiris. Assyrians call you Adonis, but it's Jesus. So thank you for that super chat, and that is my answer. What do you think about that?
So I just need to pull up this one reference, but I think I found something that connects David with this figure. So obviously you have Adonis, Tammuz, Dumuzi. What else do we have? I said Adonis.
Yeah.
What
Ashmun.
Yeah, Ehrman. Like they're all very much connected. So okay, so let's see. Is this 2 Samuel 7:13? So there's a bunch of models that fit this. 7:13, I think it was. Let me just double check. Yeah. So here, 2 Samuel 7:13. So here it is. This is God, like prophecy, or like someone prophesying for God. I forget exactly who, but when thy days are fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, that shall proceed out of thy body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be to him for a father, and he shall be to me for a son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rods of men and with the stripes of the children of men. So this is referring to David from God. God is the parent of David in this, in this paradigm. Obviously, it's not being said literally within the Jewish context, but there's likely this connection to, well, you have the, was it the parent / lover of Attis, who is Kybler, the Magna Mater. And on top of this, one of the ways that it describes David is that I forget exactly where it's from, but it's like Veda Vidya Fe Naim, and David was either David had beautiful eyes or David was beautiful to the eyes of Hu Roeh by Shoshanim.
Right.
He was a shepherd or a tender amongst the roses. And so this language gets also used within Song of Songs to refer to the long lost lover of the woman, who's likely a reference to the goddess, where she's saying, my lover is like a he's like a shepherd among the roses. And so you have this correspondence with that. And in Song of Songs, you have a lot more clear references to this whole tradition.
Wow, that's such a good point. And dude, you just reminded me of something too, is that you have this, so with David, dude, I think you're right. I think you're onto something here. David is projected as playing the kinnor, the harp, whatever it is, and not even that far away from where David is being written into the stories of Israel. You have the stories of Adonis, who is the grandson of King Kinnerus, the king of Cyprus. The word Kinnor is actually, it comes from this character who is a king who plays the Kinnor, just like David does. And he's the grandfather of Adonis.
And who's his daughter and his, the one who he produces Adonis.
Mira.
Yeah. And so also another thing before I forget. So one thing that I realized is, so there doesn't seem to be any direct etymologies connecting, Tammuz or Attis or Adonis to David, except when you get into the roots, or wait, shoot, where was I going with this? So Tammuz is the I forget where the different names come from, but Tammuz is also referred to as Dumuzid, and so Dumuzid, if you take it apart, you have it starts and ends with a D. Actually, I realized this in my stream with Graham when we were going over the symbology of the letter Dalet, and it connected. Basically, there was this one rabbi who was talking about how Dalet is connected to David because he would like it represents both. I think it's both rich and poor, and basically it's this idea that he was both the most rich man in Israel and the poorest at one time, so he represents both polarities. And so I realized, well, this doesn't really seem like, personally, I was trying to push back against it, and I realized, well, David's the only character in the Bible that I can think of that his name both starts and ends with D. And when I did that, I realized so does Dumuzid. And not only that, but so David, in Hebrew it's David, but probably originally it would have been Dawid. In Arabic, it's Dawood. And then you think about that, you have the U in Damuzid,
Right.
but you also have the two Ds.
So I see what you're getting at. I think there's definitely something that's possibility there. Definitely something there's a possibility there. Now, I want to just point this out. I'm using Wikipedia because it's quick and simple, and obviously check the sources and stuff. But Kinniras, right? Kinniras, the famous hero, and this is I'm not cutting you off. This is exactly what you're getting at. Check this out, because David, playing the harp, he's the king. Where you have this King Kinniras, who is the beloved of Apollo. Apollo is known as the god who plays the music and stuff. He plays the harp and what do you call that? What is it? What does Apollo play again? What's that? It's not the flute. It's the harp, right?
So the harpsichord is where it's like.
Yeah. Well, he plays one of those stringed instruments. Okay, so that's all that matters. You got Apollo. So this is a very Apollonian imagery happening here, and even church fathers, Clement of Alexandria, points out in the exhortation to the Greeks that characters like Kinniras was revered as the creator of art and musical instruments, the flute, the Phoenician word kinor, and this is where this is a Phoenician story, by the way. This is right there, and where the Phoenicians were thriving, and so you got that going, and so the fact that he is his line, there's this idea of Davidic line. This is what I was getting at. The idea of the Davidic line, right? This anointed line. The Messiah is going to come from David. Everyone knows that. Messiah, oil, right? Adonis. Adonis, oil. Eshman, oil. There's always oil associated with these gods, and he's from the same line as King Kinniras. He's the grandson of King Kinniras. That seems very specific for me to be a coincidence. You have a line, an anointed line of bloodline that's royal, and they're associated with playing harps and music, and they're the beloved of their gods. David's the beloved of Yahweh. Kinniras was the beloved of Apollo, and I think there's definitely some very strong correlations happening between the Phoenicians and the Jews, and not to mention. I did the video on Sancho Niethin's text about Saturn and El. There's just so much happening in this world of El, who is equivalent of Saturn or Kronos, and he's worshipped on the seventh day, and he castrates himself to Aranos in heaven, and he offers up his only begotten son, Yedud, which almost looks like the word Judah, and offers up.
It's not Yedud, it's Yehud. So that supports it more than if it would be Yedud.
Okay. Are you sure it's not Iedud?
No, it's Yehud.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. But still, okay. And I never once said that that's where the word Judah comes from. I just thought it sounds kind of familiar. The point is, that's not the point. The point is you have an Abrahamic figure like Saturn offering up his son to a god to please the god, like Abraham offers up Isaac, right? So you have that going. There's so much going on between the Phoenician Ugaritic text that we see later on in the Hebrew Bible, and to me, it's pretty strong. I mean, I don't like using the word like plagiarize or copy, but I see what I see when I see this. I see evolution, religious evolution. These are sacred ideas. They reflect agriculture. They reflect the world. They reflect the waters. They reflect the air, the ground, the underworld, whatever they thought about. And they put it down into, and they reflect the history on the text. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
There's people who even say that Kybele, the goddess Kybele, might be a historical person. There are scholars. I can pull it up if you really want me to. There are scholars that say that Kybele might have been a real queen of Anatolia. And I don't know much about it. I have to look more into it, why they think that. But these are people who study this stuff. And that is a strong hypothesis that's floating around out there.
So another thing, so you mentioned the Phoenicians and the connection to the Israelites. I honestly think that we might be getting this wrong, partly because the Phoenicians were seen as so other to the Israelites. So it's like looking at it retroactively, we see them as two different groups when really they were probably originally one. And part of the reason that I suspect this is the case.
I think so.
So let's see. In First King, where is this? All right, First Kings 5:15, and Hiram, king of Tsor, king of Tyre. So keep in mind, Tyre is in the land that actually I'm not sure exactly where which land. It would have either been in. Okay, no. So Sidon was further north, but Tyre was in the territory of Asher. So it says, and Hiram, king of Tsor, sent his servants to Shlomo, to Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in place of his father. For Hiram always loved David. And so this word loved, let's see. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the word for love. It doesn't imply a sexual love, but it does imply a definite love. Not just like, oh, I liked him. This isn't like, oh, you know, he was a cool guy. This is that he loved him, probably as a brother or maybe as a cousin. Who knows? So what's interesting here, though, is that here, let me just find the reference. Okay, here. So in the Talmud in Arachin, it says, and the master says, Hiram's mother was also from the house of Dan. As the verse states about him, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, from 2 Chronicles 2:13. And it is written with regard to those who constructed the tabernacle, and with him was Oholiab, the son of Achisamach of the tribe of Dan, a craftsman and skilled workman, a weaver in colors, in blue and in purple, and in scarlet and fine linen. And so I was actually talking with Chris Bennett about this. We're trying to get to the bottom of fine linen. He's still not 100% convinced, but it seems pretty likely that the fine linen is probably a reference to hemp fiber. Oh shoot,
Oh shit, yeah, I've been live for like, I was live before this. Hold on, I'll let it cool down. Just go ahead, keep talking.
Yeah. So let's see. This teaches that Hiram continued in the craft of brasswork, the craft of his family's family, and also of his mother's family from Dan. But what's interesting is there's also some traditions that his mother was from Naphtali. But what's interesting is the reason why this is important to state is because it's seen that, well, if he's the king of Tyre, then that clearly implies that he's a Tyrian. And the Tyrians weren't Israelites. Or were they? And I seriously think
I think the best way to navigate that is just say they both fall under the branch of Semites, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's even a bit too broad because Semites includes Arabs, and Arabs were living in a different cultural milieu, although it was very similar. I think it would be more.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So you just said it. You just different cultural milieu, but very similar. Same. No. Both have very similar writing styles, Aramaic style writings too.
So yeah, but I guess what I'd push back on is that I would say that the Phoenicians and Israelites were basically using two terms to refer to both peoples that lived in the land of Canaan. The thing is, the land of Phoenicia, like Phoenicia is the same as Canaan. Phoenicia means the land of the purple dye. Right. And that's what Canaan means. Kinanu, the purple people.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a good point. It's the same location. I guess the Phoenician word is just a word that is like the Greeks used to call the Tyrians and the Sidonians. They don't call themselves that. But they did I don't know if they call themselves Canaanites though either. Well, so it might be the same phenomena.
So no, this is the thing. So so we know that the Phoenicians actually called themselves Kinanu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their ethnonym.
Now, could you? I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just curious. Is there a text that shows this?
Here, let me find this because it's really interesting. Let's see, Kinanu. Let's see, Kinanu, Phoenicia. Okay, here it should be under the etymology of Phoenicia. So let's see, etymology. So given this from Wikipedia, but everything's cited. I'm going to look into this more because this is definitely something that. All right. So being a society of independent city-states, the Phoenicians apparently did not have a term to denote the land of Phoenicia as a whole. So this might be what you were talking about. Instead, demonyms were often derived from the land of the city an individual hailed from. Example given: Sidonian for Sidon, Tyrian for Tyre, etc. If the Phoenicians did possess an etymon to denote the land overall, some scholars believe that they would have used Canaan and therefore referred to themselves as Canaanites. According to one reconstruction, the Honeyman inscription dated to 900 BCE by William F. Albright seems to contain a reference to the Phoenician homeland, calling it Put. Interesting. There might be a connection there, and the Punics. So Ponulis, a Latin comedic.
Punic would mean Punic comes from that Phoenician thing too. It's like
yeah. So Pinellus, a Latin comedic play written in the early 2nd century BCE, appears to preserve a Punic term for Phoenicians, which may be reconstructed as Ponim. That'd be Ponim. The name Phoenicians, like Latin pony, adjective ponicus, later punicus, comes from Greek phonike, the word phonixe, not to be confused with the mythical bird phoenix, which shares a spelling meant variably Phoenician person, Tyrian purple, crimson, or date palm. Homer used it with each of these meanings. It is difficult to ascertain which meaning came first, but it is understandable how Greeks may have associated the crimson or purple color of dates and dye with the merchants who traded both products. A derivative, ponikio, is already attested in Mycenaean Greek, Linear B, from the 2nd millennium BC. In these records, it means crimson or palm tree and does not denote a group of people. Likewise, obelisks at Karnak describe Tutmos III smiting the prominent men of Retgenu, the region of Canaan in Syria, and a land belonging to what it calls the Fonhua. I'm not sure exactly how here it's saying which is sometimes identified with Phoenicia, as it would represent a reasonable point of origin for the Linear B term phonikio, and seems to be the plural form of the ancient Egyptian word for carpenter, befitting of the crucial station Phoenicia served in the lumber trade of the Levant, which also ties into the fact that Hiram provided the cedars from Lebanon for the temple.
Yeah, and so Phoenician, the idea of Phoenicians goes back way before Israel was even a thought.
Right.
Like you just said right there, there's a linear B term for the Phoenicians, and then I think Herodotus Herodotus writes a lot about the Phoenicians, and I think he just thinks that, like, he glosses over Israel as if it's just part of Phoenicia, so there's that too,
Yeah, maybe we're the biased ones.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's not that the Phoenicians are Israelites, it's that the Israelites are Phoenicians.
Well, and see, this is the thing, because this is the kernel of truth.
And I think it falls down to this. These are Semitic people from the Levant, and there's going to be a lot of commonalities. There's going to be a lot of overlap. There's also differences, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and another thing that this brings up is the fact that Phoenicians or Canaanites are actually demonized in the Bible and later in Jewish tradition.
Right.
So one of the things that's interesting, because Proverbs is attributed to being a Hellenistic era text.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I definitely see how you get some of that, but it definitely seems like it might be even earlier, because there's this one.
Some of it could be Egyptian. People say too. A lot of that.
So there's this one part in the very end of Proverbs. So it's in Proverbs 31. I forget exactly what line, but so it's in Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. And it's likely that this is also referring to a goddess or to like this kind of goddess imagery. But one of the lines is, was it Sadin Asta Vatim Hor? She makes satins and sells them. And so it's important to notice it says she sells the satins that she makes. The chagur and a girdle, Natna, she gives Lekanani to the Canaanite. But the translation it has is not Canaanite, it's merchant.
Oh,
And so,
that's interesting.
yeah.
Let me read the super chat because it's been on the screen
Yeah.
for a while. Yakub, thank you, Yakub. I always love seeing you in the chat. Yakub's cool. Did the Pelagians have any influence on Roman religion? It's interesting. I know that Pelagians are considered to be part of the Trojan peoples by Homer, or at least influence or allies of them. Maybe one of the other. It's one of the two. And the story of the founding of Rome, the Aeneid, is Aeneas, who's a Trojan, goes and survives the war, and he goes and finds Rome. So I don't know. Maybe there's something like that going on. Maybe they're like, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, so I can't really say. I wish there was someone who knew this. Oh, we were talking about this though. This might be unrelated to your question, but you paid $5, so I'm gonna hover on this for a little while. I'm thinking. Remember we were talking about this, how the founding cities of the Etruscans were 12 families. You there? You remember we were talking about that?
Oh, you're asking me? Or
Yeah. The 12 founding families of the Etruscans.
Yeah.
They have a law code. It's called the 12 Tables. And so they have what's so interesting about this, it makes you wonder how much are the Semitic Phoenicians that founded who are the Etruscans? It's such a mystery. Are they European people? Their look at their alphabet. It looks like half Phoenician, half European. You can't tell what it is. It looks like both. Like people don't even know. But the weird part is the story, the origin story that you get from Dionysius of Halicarnassus. He tells you the story where 12 families founded the Etruscans, set up 12 city-states. And in the middle of the 12 city-states, they had not a temple, a grove of where the priesthood from amongst the 12 families would go and be the elders of the entire region of the Etruscans. That sounds a lot like something that sounds like Israel almost. 12 tribes with the Levites in the middle. Like, you know what I mean? It sounds like that. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I guess so you definitely have that same parallel. Because the names don't really match, but you do have like a similar type of administrative breakdown.
Yeah, no, the names are completely different.
Yeah.
That's a good. You know what? Since you paid for the super chat and I can't answer your question, let's look that up real quick. I wonder if I can look out 12 Etruscan city-states because let's just look at them. Let's just see if we can.
Oh, and you know what else?
What?
The Decapolis.
Yeah. Like, good point. Decapolis. That's 10 though, right?
Yeah, but I mean, how much you want to bet it was originally 12 and they shortened it to 10 for this?
Never know. Never know.
I mean, yeah, I'm not claiming that's the case, but
Now look at this, right? So here's your region. There's 12 cities in there. Rome's not part of the original Etruscan cities. Rome is an Italic Latin city. It's different. But anyway, it's so close. See how close Rome is to that border? That's why the Etruscans have so much influence on Roman thoughts and philosophy and religion. But anyways, here's the 12 cities. You got Aretum, Cari, Clevson, Curtin, Perusna, Tarhuna, Pulpuna, Latuna. I can't even say that. I don't even know how to pronounce this. I'm probably butchering it all. But anyways, I don't know. Yeah, it's obviously not like the 12 tribes, but like whatever. Just wanted to look at it. That's all.
So something you did tell me that kind of stuck out to me. So like if you scroll up a bit.
Yeah.
So like for instance, Aritim, I mean, I don't know exactly what that would translate to, but that does kind of fit into like a Semitic was it like phonetics. Then you also have Kisra, which could also be connected. I don't really see much with Klevsi. That seems much more European. But then you have like Kurtun or Kutna, Persna, and like there you're getting a lot of potential. You have Tarhuna or Tarhna. You definitely have some stuff, but at the end of the day,
well, if you see right here, it says for sources and etymologies, if any. I mean, when you see that right there, that tells you They're probably, we don't know. Like, this is such an ancient city-state region. The Etruscans, when you think of the Etruscans, ancient, old, they go back before the Romans. We don't know much about them. Like, I think we're lucky to even have the names. Oh, by the way, Cortona. There's a Croton. I was thinking of Croton. That's something else. That's southern Italy. That's not even the same place. But anyways, basically my point is, we just don't know. We don't know what these places are named from. We don't know. It's just all a mystery. But I don't know. I just wanted to look at it.
So Cart in Semitic actually means city. So like Carthage.
Oh wow, maybe that's not even a bit. That's a really, we don't know, but that's not a bad hypothesis to be like, maybe there were Semitic people. Maybe they did name it after another Carthage thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe. But here's the thing. I want to pull this up. Go ahead. You could talk while I'm looking this up. I want to show people the Etruscan alphabet and tell me it doesn't look Phoenician. Tell me it doesn't.
So I guess what I mean though is, so I'm not saying that it came from Carthage, but just that Carthage is from Cart. So like so there's also like this one part. It's a city known as like Carthage or something. Then you also have cart being used to refer to basically like the walls of the cart, the walls of the city. But so Carthage is actually was it Cart Hadash? Cart Hadash becomes Carthage, and then eventually in Carthago Nova, which basically means new city.
Yeah. Now check this out, right? Here's Etruscan. All right, look at that letter. Look at the letter mem and none.
Oh wow!
All right, see on the. All right, I'm sorry, Yaku. I'm just gonna get rid of your thing for a second so I can see this. Now, this is gonna blow people's minds away. Now, this is considered to be a Proto-Indo-European alphabet, which fair enough, it probably is. I'm not the expert. I don't know, but look at this. Okay, look at the mem. Look at the nun. Look at the e, the letter e, which is het. Now look at this. I'm gonna go to Phoenician real quick.
No, that it's hey.
Hey, okay, yeah, hey. Or that's the Hebrew one.
Well, no, but you said it's het.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they call it in Etruscan. It could be hey. It might be hey actually. But yeah, it might be hey.
Well,
yeah.
But interestingly, you do, so the one that would be H as opposed to E, so like the one that corresponds to H is actually like very similar to het, and then on top of that you have the tet, which is very similar, and on top of that, you could even argue, the cough as well, because like the shape is even derived from the K is derived from the cough. So
I got a better idea. I have a better idea. I can copy and I can share my screen real quick, and I have this. So this is going to be better, actually. All right, ready? So that's the Phoenician, right? Now look at the letter for the letter H. Same thing, except it's just left or right. You just flip it. So it's just backwards, which would explain why English is left to right and why Hebrew is right to left. Just look at this. Okay, now let's get another example. The N, M and N. Okay, M and N. I'm just gonna go English now. M and N. Now look at the Phoenician version of those. It looks like a line with a W or a V next to it, right? I'm just hear me out. Now look at this one. The M and M are the exact same thing but flipped. Are you kidding me? Do you think there's any possible way that they're not related? You are full of shit. They have to be related. That would be the greatest coincidence in world history. I just found a better model. So here's your Phoenician A. Here's your Etruscan A. Here's your Phoenician K, I guess, right? And then look at this. Can you see my mouse right now?
Yeah.
All right, now go down. It's the same thing. And then look at the Lamech, the L. It's just flipped over to the left.
And you see,
this is the archaic Etruscan. It's older than Neo-Etruscan. It's the same freaking.
Oh, wow.
It's the same thing, dude. So you cannot tell me. I'm sorry, bro, but look, I actually have a linguist coming on here. It's the one I was telling you about who
awesome.
completely debunks Saturn and Satan having any connection. Or not only that, this person debunks Theos and Dios. says that they're not even related. And he's
Interesting.
going to show that too. It's a fact. Now, I want to ask him about this stuff. I'm going to put his feet to the fire. You're going to tell me that Etruscan is not a Semitic language. Please, I'm all ears. I need to know why that's the case, because right now I'm just not seeing it. My amateur, not professional, not academic self is not seeing it. You need to teach me now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the beauty of not being an expert. It's like you're allowed to just be like, this is what I think, and I could be wrong, but who cares? Just what I think. And then the expert comes in and says, well, you're wrong. Here's why. And then you're like, damn, I didn't know that. Shit, you're right. That makes sense. That's usually how it works. But like, seriously though, looking at this graph, it's just, am I crazy or what?
No, and other things to point out, the D or Dalet, it's flipped as well. You can also see the same thing with the Vav and the F. You can see the same thing with the I and the Yod, except the Yod gets the. Wait, where am I? Wait, the Phoenician model, it's saying it. Interesting,
What?
but then you also have the Chet and the Tet. They're identical. Like you don't even need to flip them.
The same thing, yeah.
And then
is that a Samic? Is this a Samic?
Yeah.
This
and then
one
you have
looks like this one just looks like it's boxed.
Yeah, and then you have the Ayin, which they both look like O's or they look like I.
Look at this. Look at this.
Oh yeah, Q. Cool.
Look at this. It's the same fucking thing. I keep swearing. I gotta stop doing that. You get
And then
that stuff.
You have it with Resh as well. It looks like a P, but you know.
But you guys get my point, and that's. I hope. Where is he? I hope Yaakov. I hope that answers some of your questions. It's not Pelagians, but I'm just saying, like, maybe there's some influence from the pro-Roman world that comes from the East. I'm going on a limb and saying, yeah, I think so. But thank you for that super chat. Philip Demick. Did you see the purple fabric from Davidic times?
Yeah, so this is actually interesting. So if you look at the here, let me pull it up. So it's the let's see, Jacob's wait, I'm trying to think. Okay, here I can just look up part of it. So royal dainties, that's one of the parts. So in Jacob, in Jacob the forefathers like addressed his sons before he dies. He talks about like they'll each be given a blessing. Some of them are given almost not curses, but kind of like this is going to be your weak spot, and here's your strong suit. So listen to this. Let's see. Is this? Yep, here I found it. So I'll just read for context. So you have assemble and hearken, O sons of Jacob. Hearken to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and first fruit of my vigor, exceeding in rank and exceeding in honor. Unstable as water, you shall excel no longer. For when you mounted your father's bed, you brought disgrace. My couch be mounted. Basically, because he slept with one of Jacob's wives, not his mom, but one of the handmaids. So technically not his aunt either, but still really weird. And he definitely disgraced his father. So because of this, the kingship departs from him and goes down to, it would be to Shimon. But then you have Shimon and Levi are a pair. Their weapons are tools of lawlessness. And I don't need to read the whole thing, but let's see. Let not my being be counted in their assembly, for when they are angry, they slay a man. When they are pleased, they maim an ox. So in this, it almost seems like it's saying, also, there's this connection to the priesthood because it's saying when they're pleased, they maim an ox. That almost sounds like sacrificing an ox. But the other thing is, so what it says they slay a man because, and this is actually going into the other thing we were talking about with Shechem. So when their sister Dinah gets abducted, whether it was actually abduction or whether they fell in love with each other, it's not totally clear. But basically, so Shimon and Levi, when the whole town of Shechem circumcises themselves so that their prince can marry Dinah, while they're all in recovery, Shimon and Levi lead a raiding party and kill all the men in the town. And so because of this, they're both like kind of the kingship departs from them and goes to Judah. And so here, cursed be their anger so fierce and their wrath so relentless, I will divide them in Jacob, scatter them in Israel. So here's where it gets to Judah. And this is talking about Philip Demick's question. So you, O Judah, your brothers shall praise. So it's a play on words in Hebrew. So it's Yehuda, Ata, Yoduch, Acheach, Yadach. Basically, it's using this like Yod or Hod which basically means like to praise or anyway. So your hand shall be on the nape of your foes. Your father's son shall bow low to you. Judah is a lion's whelp. On prey, my son, have you grown. He crouches, lies down like a lion, like a lioness. Who dares rouse him? So it's clear that even within this, comparing him to a lion, there's this context of a lioness as well. And it's important because it doesn't need to mention a female lion at all in this. But here's where it gets really interesting. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet.
Thinking about lions,
I wonder if
there's the idea of lions pulling the Great Mother.
Oh yeah, that's a definite connection to her, especially because, again, you're not claiming this is the case, but this is something we've been looking into, whether there might be some connection, whether just etymologically or even culturally, between the Idaeans and the Judeans.
Yeah, dude, this is what Tacitus said. Should I pull up the Tacitus verse again?
Sure. And I'll just
go over this a lot on my channel, but go ahead, keep talking.
Yeah. So also it says, so nor this ruler's staff from between his feet. It's just interesting that it refers to his ruler's staff being between his feet. Maybe there's something else going on there, but it's not important. So that tribute shall come to him, and the homage of people be his. He tethers his ass to a vine, his ass is full to a choice vine. He washes his garment, his robes, in wine, his robe in blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, his teeth are whiter than milk. And so interestingly, this is also paralleling this is paralleling the imagery in Song of Songs, how it's talking about the woman's lover, how his teeth are whiter than milk, but his eyes are dark, as well as his hair.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what I thought was interesting here is how it refers to his washing his robes in the garments of grapes. So obviously this is something you see just, the purple dye, it's referenced throughout, but here it's specifically referring to Judah and David.
But you also have the death of Attis or Hyrcanus, where their death becomes like a bloody red rose that comes out of the ground. Their blood, like it rises up as a flower. There's the idea of red. You know what I mean? Oh, and by the way, in Lebanon, there's a river, and every year it's springtime, when the rains start coming down real hardcore at springtime, it washes off this sleet, this red sleet that comes off the mountains, goes into the water. The water turns blood red every year in the springtime, even to this year, even right now in 2022. This will happen 2023 next year. Or 2023 now, I said, whatever. I almost forgot today's the 1st. But in a couple months from now, if you go to Lebanon, I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm sure people are experts in this. There will be a day, I don't know if it's 1 day or 2 days or whatever, where the river turns red from the mountains. That's when they get a lot of rain.
So I just thought of another connection. What other river turns red, blood red?
I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay, think of it. What? It's also connected with the same time period in which the rites of Attis take place. Okay, you literally mentioned it before. What's the Jewish holiday that coincides with Easter?
Oh, Passover.
Yeah, the Nile turning red with blood.
Oh yeah, I should. That's a duh. Yeah, that's a good one. I wonder, dude. There's so much going on that there's just so much that you don't know what's connected, what's just coincidence. But it's all fun to. This is what I do on my channel. This is why I do these lives. I'm not sitting here telling you that all these religions copy each other, but I am going to point out things that I think are interesting that are commonalities, because I do think there is an evolution of religious ideas, whether it be conscious of it or not. They're there. Now check this out. Tacitus is dead strong on the fact that the people from Crete are the original Jews.
Just real quick before you bring that up, I do just want to address something in the chat. Someone's saying, what one flew into the cuckoo's nest on Hero Ve because, and they're saying, was it, wait, sorry. Okay, yeah. No, Shabbat has no link to Saturn. Shabbatai was a false fraud messiah in the Middle Ages.
We're gonna get to that because there's a super chat about that. I saw the super chat. So perfect. Hold that thought, because that's perfect. Right, we'll get to that. That's a good. It's not a bad claim. Maybe you're right, but I'm just gonna let's real quick. I just want to gloss over this because I don't even know what was there a reason why you brought this up, or was it just my idea? Maybe.
Oh, it was because we were talking about the Idaeans.
Yeah, here it is. Lengthening of Idea. the name of the people dwelling on the famous Mount Ida in Crete. Now, the only thing that I've noticed about this, because a lot of scholars are so critical of this, they're like, Tacitus is wrong. But the only way this could be correct is here's how it would play out. People from Ida, the Idea, are the sea peoples. They go down to Egypt. They go and they mix with Egypt for a few centuries. Then they get kicked out of Egypt. They become the Hyksos. They get kicked out of Egypt. They go up to Israel. They become Israel. That's the way that it would work if that was the case. So that's your way of making that work. If that makes sense. I'm giving you a scenario. I'm not saying that's true, but that would be the best case scenario if Tacitus was right.
So part of that theory, actually, I haven't looked into this enough, but I'm pretty sure that the theory is that with the Bronze Age collapse, that they basically part of their ancestral memory, they went back to the land they originated from, and that it wasn't simply an invasion, but that they were recognized as foreigners by their brothers, even though they were probably linguistically and culturally connected.
Good point. But that's an interesting idea to play around with, and who knows, maybe there's some truth to it. But there's the idea of Saturn, and this is also in Tacitus. I just clicked out of it, but let's go to it real quick. This is a perfect segue actually for this super chat. I'm gonna read it. Thoughts on Saturn and Satan. Before we even get to this, let's see where I'm actually curious now. I forgot what he says, but he does mention Saturn here. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Let's see. I can do. So here we go. Here it is. We are told that the seventh day was set aside for the rest of mankind and their toils in course time. Here it is. Yeah, I'll keep going. In course time, the seductions of idleness made them devotee of every seventh year, sabbatical year. Now, how does Tacitus know this? Let's keep going. As well, others say that this is a mark of respect to Saturn, either because they owe the basic principles of their religion to the Idea. By the way, if you know anything about Cretan mythology, Azizios is the father god. He's the god. He's the high god. He's the sky father. And Azizios is actually a version of Zeus, but also identified as another Saturn. Like he's sort of in the middle. Anyways, we are told that we're expelled in the company of Saturn, and because the founders of the Jewish race, or because among the 7 stars that rule mankind, the one describes the highest orbit, most high, Hypsistos. Hypsistos is also identified as Sabazios, and exerts the greatest influence is Saturn. A further argument is that most of the heavenly bodies complete their path in revolutions in multitudes of 7. So he's throwing out a bunch of different random theories at you, but he gives you the Saturn theory. And so that brings me to this. The thoughts on Saturn and Satan. I've looked into this. I've asked people about this too. I've asked people who know linguistics. No relation, not even close. Just a coincidence that they both start off with SIT, S-A-T. And so Saturn is a word that comes from Proto-Indo-Europe. Let's pull it up, actually. So I don't want people to think that I'm just making stuff up. I'm going to show you what I mean right now.
Also, while you're doing that, I do just want to address one thing that Motorhead said. We are not a race or DNA, skin color. Nazi Germany invented that. Nuremberg laws of evil. We have Jews from all races, colors, nationalities. And that's 100% true. The thing is, the way that race was used in the ancient context, it's literally just referring to a people. It's referring to a point of origin from which a people sprout. It doesn't have to do with our current context of race being something that's skin color or, like you do have this association of race with people, but not with genetics.
According to Vero, Marcus Terentius Vero. Now, whenever you see me using Wikipedia, it's because I'm just trying to be quick with this stuff, okay? But their sources are listed. Anyone can check in this. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe Wikipedia is wrong. Check on it. Leave a comment. Saturn's, but I know this is true because I've asked people about this. That's why I'm using this. Okay, but go ahead. You can feel free to challenge me all you want. Saturn's name was derived from Satus, meaning sowing. All right. This is not a Semitic word. This is a Proto-Indo-European word. This is one of the oldest words that is used in the world of the Greek and Italian people. Like, it's very, very, very old. It goes back before Latin and Greek. Satus, sowing. Satan, I don't even need to pull this up. Everyone knows what Satan means. Satan is a Semitic word that means accuser. And it doesn't translate into Greek as the same thing. It's transliterated as Satana, Greek. But it's translated as diablos, where we get the word devil from. And no, people think devil, people want to coordinate devil with devas. Not a thing. Just a coincidence. Diablos is where you get the word devil from. So the reason why I'm being strict like this is because you see me on my channel. I'm very loose with finding comparative stuff in mythology, but I don't want to just be so loose that we're just making shit up. I'm trying to follow the experts, the data, the real linguistic. I'm not just trying to sound right and sound cool and just tell you everything. Your 7 chakras and your skeleton is a serpent. Like, I'm not just trying to tell you fluff. Like, I'm trying to be as correct as possible in what I'm saying, but also I love to speculate as well. But besides the point is the two words are from different families of thought. One of them is not even a god. Satan's not God. Satan is basically like an angel. He's God's district attorney. If you want, the way Job describes him is perfect. He sits there and he teaches, or he talks to God, and he accuses people like Job, and he says Job's no good. You see what happens when you fuck his family up, and then we'll make a bet. Anyways, what I'm saying is Saturn, the sower, is the father, is the god, the highest god, who is the father of Jupiter. And Satan is not even close to that. He's an accuser. Go ahead.
So this is actually really interesting, and this does connect to Greek. I'm actually I'm logging in through my university to get access to this. It's one of those like not a paywall, but like where you have to have access through an institution. So I'm going to share it now. This is really interesting because the thing is, people want to associate Satan with Saturn mainly because of this idea. Well, Jupiter versus Saturn, it's this ultimate duel, but like really,
you're right. But Jupiter is also the son of Saturn, and Yahweh is not the son of Satan.
Exactly. In fact, and in fact, if anything, Satan is probably the son of Yahweh as a result of this idea of the sons of El or the sons of God.
Interesting. That's an interesting point.
So what's interesting is there's actually a correspondence. So one of the names of the devil, or one of the like demonic names that people like to use, is Azazel, right?
Right.
So Azazel was actually some spirit or entity that was like basically like a wilderness spirit that people would give an offering to. They wouldn't slaughter the animal to it. They would just send off the goat. They'd have 2 goats. It also goes to the whole Barabbas and Jesus thing. But basically, so they'd send off 1 goat into the wilderness to distract Azazel, and then which is also interesting. Why would they have to distract Azazel? Because the fact that it has El in it implies that it's the Azaz of El. But it's because that they're basically having to fuse together an older idea together with the idea of an angel, because originally Azazel was most likely Azizios or Aziz. And it's also interesting because one of the most I'm not going to claim that this is the most popular or one of the, I don't know, but maybe it is. I've heard it a lot. The name Abdulaziz, that means the servant of Aziz. I mean, Abdallah means the servant of Allah. So Abdulaziz means the servant of Aziz. So, I mean, I'd wonder to see how that would be explained. But anyway, so here are you able to
and real quick, just to show, Hebrew Satan adversary, one who plots against another. So you can have a Satan or the Satan. There could be a Satan, somebody who opposes somebody or accuses somebody of something, false slanderer. See, literally slanderer, diablos. That's why it's translated in Greek as diablos. That's where the devil comes from. So I just wanted to point that out there. Go ahead.
So here I'm sharing my screen.
Oh,
right
but
now.
the Azazel thing is important because that's where you get this idea of the goat too.
Yeah.
And so this is where Pan gets lumped in with. So the Christians, what they do is, and this is why it's like when I see like people like doing satanic initiations using revelation or something, like you're just doing Christianity. It's just Christianity, bro. You might as well do a baptism at that point. You might as well do a Eucharist. That's not the mysteries, anyways. But to do that, what you're doing is you're lumping in to take Saturn and say Saturn is Satan, and then it actually fits good with people who do that kind of stuff. It's like that's like New Age shit because what the Christians end up doing is they have this idea of this dualism of good and evil. God is good, Satan is bad. Satan becomes the serpent in the garden who never was that originally. That was a totally different character. Satan is the guy in Job. Serpent's the guy in the garden. They're two different things. They're not the same. Christians put them together. Christians do that. They take Azazel, a character from Enoch, and say, well, he's bad, so Satan must be that too. So now you have Satan getting bigger and stronger, and he's getting more and more attributes. Now he's got to be connected with the underworld. So he's basically Pluto. Oh, he's also Lucifer because he's the light bringer. So you have all these different names and titles for this evil incarnate. And so why not throw Saturn on top of that too? Saturn was bad. He ate his children. Okay, so Saturn and Satan are the devil now, and they sound the same, so they must be cognates. So it's actually like it's actually like all hindsight. Christians take the devil, they take Satan, and they add all this stuff together that's not real. Like Azazel is not Satan; they're two different things. Or the serpent, not Satan, two different things. Lucifer, totally different than anything. It comes out of Greek mythology and Roman mythology. But yeah, let's lump him in there. Pan, the goat. Well, Azazel sounds like the goat, so throw him in there too. And all of a sudden, you end up with this Christianized version of an opponent god of God, something different and other. And so you get Satanism, and Satanism is like, oh yeah, we just want anything that's the opposite of God in the Bible. We're going to worship that thing, and that's how you get this like modernized version, this new age version of Satanism, which is people are trying to say is now Saturnian, which, okay, great. I see how you got there, but I don't care because it has nothing to do with the ancient text. And that's what I'm focused on. You know what I mean?
It's the great satanic melting pot.
Exactly.
So interestingly, we do know who the ancients were associating Satan with, and it wasn't Saturn. It was actually a different Greek god, or a different, Greco-Roman god. And so I have my screen shared now. If you can pull
I'm sorry. I didn't even see that. I just noticed that. Sorry about that.
No worries. Also, hopefully you can read this because I don't know enough Greek to translate this.
Can you make it a little bit bigger? I can try. Yeah, I can try to read it.
I'm trying to see if I can zoom in more. It seems like this is as far as I can. So
really?
Yeah.
As far as you can go? Okay, I can read it now.
Right.
Okay.
So this is
Phil Hellenic is number 3.
Wait. What?
Okay, go ahead. Read it. Read it.
So this inscription was first. So this is by a Greek dedicatory inscription to Azizios by Asher in Israel Roll, Department of Classical Studies from Tel Aviv University. This inscription was first examined in the spring of 1972. Found in the Beit Shean. Okay, this is interesting also because someone brought this. I forget who brought it up, but found in the Beit Shean Valley. So Beit Shean in Hellenic times was actually known as Scythopolis, the city of the Scythes or city of the Scythians. So this is really interesting.
Oh, wow.
So it is now housed in the storerooms of the Archaeological Museum at Katsrin in the Golan Heights. That's actually where the tour guide who led one of my tours when I was in Israel one time, where he lives, he's a really great guy. So it's in the Golan, which is also relevant because this is also within, the area where Jesus would have lived.
Right.
Yeah. So
what are these words on there for? Oh, they're carved on a flat rectangular slab. I can barely see it, dude. It's so small on my screen. No, you're making it smaller. I think it says Phoenicios. I can't see it. It almost the A looked like an L for a second. That's how small it is.
So what I'll do is I'll take what I could do is I could take a picture of that.
Latsos. I see Curion. which is Lord. Curion, which is Lord. I see Azizios. Oron Oronte.
I just texted you the picture.
Okay.
So so the inscription is carved on a flat rectangular slab of
You sure you
basalt.
texted me? I don't see anything.
Oh, it's still loading.
Okay.
The rectangular slab of basalt. Originally, it contained 16 lines, but only 12 are now preserved. The letters are in round script. The upper lines and lower lines edges have been deliberately defaced, apparently as a result of the reuse of the slab in a later building. The inscription reads as following, and it's almost sent. Sorry about this. Then it says line 1 has not been preserved. In the meantime, while we're waiting, I'll just read the next part. Wait, where is this? This line has not been preserved since this is the opening line. It is probably contain the customary formula. These two words would number 9 letters, the same number.
Okay. Oh, this says it right here.
It does?
Right, yeah, lines 2 through 4. Line 2 also defaced. Seems to have contained the man's name, and there is no evidence for its restoration.
All right, so let's see.
Yeah, it is Phoenicios. That's what I said. Phoenicios. Phoenicios in line 3 is the adjective form of the place of Phina in the city of Trachonitis, modern day. So it's the name of a city? Okay. The same ethnic adjective appears on a Greek dedicatory inscription to Zeus found Damit El Alia, the deity's title. Latsos in line 4 is the dedicator's profession that a craftsman or stone carver. Lines 5 through 9. Euper Soterias. Oh, Soterias.
Ooh.
Ton Kurion, which means Lord. Autocrateron, or Autocrateron, which is isn't it Most High? Or no, that's not Most High. That's the Autocrator. What is I just was looking at that word. It's I think it's like a demiurgic word. What does that mean again?
It's like I recognize it, but I don't know enough Greek to let's see.
Hold on, I'll find it right now. Actually, I'll find it right now. I know that word.
Personification of power and strength.
Yeah, that's what I said. Demiurge. It's like a demiurge word. It's like you're the power. Yeah. So that word. Okay, so you have Uter, Soterion, Tonkurion, Autocrator. So it is the Lord, the Savior, and the power, and the most powerful. So that's what that means. So whoever this is like some high god. That's what they're describing.
Interesting. Right? Yeah. So ligature of the letters.
And then the bottom one says Theo, God, Azizio. The god Azizios was a Semitic deity, which was widespread in the Syrian region during the Roman period. So yeah, you have this it's a savior god too. That's mind blowing. You have a savior god who's a goat, who's also Luciferian because he's called the morning star too. Remember that?
Yeah. So Azizios, he was actually referred to as the morning star. Yeah, this is where the idea of Satan.
Okay. This is big because this explains once again the evolution of religion's ideas. How the Christians take this guy, the Satan, and they make him like everything bad incarnate is Satan, right? Where you see these ideas happening with this deity, whereas he's the Lucifer, he's the goat, he's this, he's that. But not only that, when you go to Israel, which I was just there, they have the cave, the Pan's Grotto, and when you go to Pan's Grotto, it's called the entrance way to hell, and then all the people there say that's where Satan is. So you already had the idea in Israel of people taking Pan, which is the goat god. It was not even a bad god anyway. He's one of the good gods in Greek mythology.
He's just a little horny.
He's just a horny lad. He's just a horny lad. That's all. He likes to play his flute and chill. But they're like, that's evil, and that's the devil. And so that's what happened. Like that, it's an evolution. Just like God is evolution from being a volcano god or a fertility deity or a sky god. And evolution or goddess. And over time, evolution makes this thing. So you don't even know where it is anymore. It's outside of space and time. You like he's the ultimate universe thing. Like there is no more idols. Like those are bad. he's outside of space and time. That's evolution of ideas. The same thing happened with Satan. All these ideas of these gods, these Luciferian, morning star, goat gods, they all became wrapped into one thing and became the devil. So there you go. That we just laid that out pretty much, you know.
So this is interesting. It says evidence of his cult are found in the Haran region.
Well, we can't see it anyway. But go ahead.
Oh.
You read it.
In Haran. So not Haran. This isn't like Haran up in Turkey. This is like Hauran. It's in Syria, in Palmyra and its surroundings. Well, literary evidence mentions this this cult at Emesa. Azizios frequently appears in conjunction with the gods Arsu or Avgai, or with the god Monimos as escorts of the sun deity. In Palmyran iconography, Azizios is generally depicted as a warrior god mounted on a horse. So who would you associate that with?
Oh, that's Sabazios, man. Sabazios is the sky. Look at it. You got to see this, dude. You got to see this. So wait, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I was reading a text. Did you say that this god is a warrior on a horse?
Yeah, warrior mounted on a horse.
Dude,
So,
the god Sabazios, when you go back far enough, his most, look at, I'm going to show my screen right now. Once again, I'm using Wikipedia just to be quick, but you guys can check the sources on this. I don't care. Like, just whatever. Check this out. This is going to blow your mind. We did not plan this. You just said it, and now I'm going to show you exactly where this comes from.
It's the muse.
Look at this. God on horseback. The Thracian horsemen. More rider stellies are at Burdur Museum in Turkey. And the Thracian horseman this is the Sabazios god. This is where they get the Sky Father from. It's so ancient. Like, it's one of the most ancient ideas of the Sky Father.
It's also saying that this is it was transformed into St. George and the Dragon.
Probably. Oh yeah, that's actually what Kreckenford was telling me. See the link. See St. George and the Dragon. Yeah. So that's probably where they get these. I don't know. You know, it's all evolution, man. It really is.
So there's definitely connections to Sabazios there, but so I have a feeling it was Julian the Apostate. I'm not 100% sure. I need to look that up. But there was a Julian in Rome who was. I'm going to look this up because I feel.
What did he do? It might be Julian the Apostate.
He correlated Azizios with Ares or with Mars.
Probably was Julian. Yeah.
But yeah.
So looking up.
Let's see. It's about to go into this probably though.
Lines super chat. I think I missed a super chat or no. No, I didn't. I don't think I did.
So lines 11 to 13. The word what? Denoting a small scale carved or painted figure. As mentioned above, Azizios is normally depicted as mounted on a horse, his sacred animal. It may thus be that the whatever that word is of the inscription refers to a depiction of the deity with his mount. Another possibility is it signifies a small sculpture of the horse dedicated together with its base to Azizios. The word, but I don't know.
I just thought about Sabazios. You take the S out, you almost have Azizios.
Yeah.
Just saying, I could be wrong, but.
So this word apparently indicates the stone on which the inscription is carved, which also served as the base of the something. Since the rear surface of the stone, here, let me just skip to the parts are okay. So here's one proposed reading of the inscription is as follows: with good fortune, so and so, the Fanian, the stone carver for the salva, salvation of the Lord Emperors to the god Azizios, the image with a base with awe dedicated. So maybe it's saying that the base was dedicated with the. I'm not sure. So our inscription, coming as it does from the Beit Shean Valley, enlarges. Oh, and that's another connection. So Beit Shean, Scythopolis, Sabazios was a Scythian god, right?
No, a Phrygian god.
Oh,
Totally different thing. So I mean, that's a different. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that the Scythians and Phrygians were connected in some shape or form.
Yeah, maybe loosely, but they're not like the. Wait. Was that a Thracian? There might be a Thracian connection. I don't know. Thracians are right next. Thracians are basically bordered to the Scythians.
Because the thing is, you have to keep in mind the fact that he's depicted as mounted on horseback. Like,
Yeah.
so, you have basically a horse-mounted god.
No. It is a Thracian horseman. I'm sorry. Wasn't no. You're okay. I messed up. Here we go. Check this out. I'll share my screen again. It is a Thracian horseback. So Thracians are bordered to the Scythians. There's probably a connection. Yeah, that definitely. But if it was Phrygia, I'd say no. But Thracian that's like saying that's like, I don't know, Greece and Macedonia. Like they're literally bordered. The Scythians are right next to the Thracians. So yeah.
So if you also just or we can get to whoever you wanted to show, but so it actually has some pictures. It has some of the remains of a purple dye industry at Tel Shikmona.
Yeah. What about what about it?
So so it has a picture of the actual inscription. Then it also has the Murex shells, because apparently so where was this discovered? That's interesting. If they just, I need to look up where Tel Shikmona is, but then they have actually. Oh, this might. I bet you. Okay, so no, it has the picture of the actual inscription, but then I have a feeling that the other stuff is just a reference to another paper or something. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So have we gotten through all the slides about Attis and Kabbalah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what is this? What do you mean? We're perplexed that how we can't call out Christianity as a Jewish psyop. What is that?
Isn't that guy the one who came on your?
Why would Christianity be a Jewish psyop? And Christianity is one of the most anti-Semitic movements in world history.
Yeah,
is that part of the plan to make? I don't understand. These are like, so when you have a theory like this, what it shows, it's very wide sweeping. It's like looking back at history and just sweeping everything in together and not I don't mean this to be rude, but it shows lack of like knowledge of the details of history. Like it shows that like your knowledge. I'm not saying you do this, Aquarium. I'm saying people who have this idea. What it does show. It shows like people who have their idea of history is like they read a couple Wikipedia pages and like they just. Okay, how did Christianity become so big? There must be the Jews. Like instead of like looking at like, okay, let's go back to the time where Christianity really was a Jewish movement. All right, what happened? Oh, there was a group of hipsterians, Jewish monotheists that Paul was engaging with. Paul is teaching them about Christianity. They buy into this thing. Christianity becomes Hellenized. Now all of a sudden you have Greek Gospels. Now all of a sudden you have a Greek religion that's came out of Judaism. Completely natural. There's a way we can show the evolution of it. There's no reason to like throw a fucking weird conspiracy theory behind it. It actually makes less sense. Like you're adding more layers and more things that are less likely than to just point out and say a spade is a spade, or like this is how, you know what I mean? Like it's way more complicated. And if that was the case, it would be a lot more apparent than it is. Like you wouldn't have popes making Jews live in ghettos or killing them, or or committing like roundups of Jews in certain parts of Spain and just saying you can't live here because you're not Catholic. Like this, that makes sense. I don't know how else to say it. That's just really far out there. It just doesn't make sense.
Basically, to sum it up, Jews thrived much better under pagans than they did under Christians or Muslims. So
there you go. So what I just said was not knowing the details of history might give you a theory like that. Someone who does read a lot of history, Ariel, that Julian the Apostate, who was a pagan who hated Christianity, was the only Roman emperor that wanted to relocate the temple and rebuild the Jewish temple again. He was the most pro-Israel Roman emperor of all time. And he was a pagan and he hated Christianity. All the Christian emperors, on the other hand, wanted to take Israel and make it Christian and kick the Jews out. And blame the death of Jesus on the Jews and create a bunch of anti-Semitism throughout the world that still exists. So I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's so out there. It just doesn't. I don't know how you could test your theories. Like, throw them at the wall, see how they stick. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but you know what's easier to stick to walls? Shit.
Yeah, it's true.
But so Mr. Kreinen says Jews were never persecuted in India or in China. So there was some. I mean, like lately with the CCP, there is like persecution, or I mean, like Jews weren't granted one of the. Actually, no. I think in China there was not so much persecution, but it was just there was more pressure put on them, so it was harder for the community in China to grow. And they were also cut off from the rest of the Jewish community. But in India is one of the has been one of the safest places to be Jews because there was no. I mean, like because at the end of the day there isn't the sorry, I'm.
Well, yeah, no, I see what you're getting at. I get your point. But you know what? You just reminded me of. Maybe we can end on this.
Oh, I did just want to bring up some. I wrote down notes when you were going through the slides because I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, but I was going to say what we can end on after this is the text that we found from what was it? It was about Socrates. It talks about the idea that Jews might have Indian roots.
Oh yeah, and someone even commented that.
So go ahead. I'll pull it up.
So so in the meantime, if you could just go to, you don't have to pull this up for everything. So let me just pull up this one quick reference because so you were talking about the stone of Kabbalah, and there's some really interesting stuff there because almost everything that's associated with the cult of Kabbalah or with the cult of Asherah, it's completely demonized in in prophets that are kind of between the first and second temple. And so let's see. What's
up, Healing Queen? What's going on? Thank you for the $5. You're the best. I gotta get you back on here soon because it's been a while. So you came on here. We had a episode about Gary Habermas and how he thinks that there's more evidence for Jesus than Alexander the Great. And so we just destroyed that whole theory, showed the evidence, laid it out, and it was fun. But Heathen Queen, go and subscribe to Heathen Queen. Oh, if you're on TikTok, go fucking look for Heathen Queen on TikTok. That is where it's popping at. Those are hilarious videos. I love watching those. And Heathen Queen, thank you for that. I appreciate you. Good to see you in the chat. Always. We should definitely catch back up soon for sure.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now, and this is really interesting. So,
oh, I'm bad. I thought I just wasn't paying attention. Go ahead.
So this is from Jeremiah. They said to wood, "You are my father." To stone, "You gave birth to me." While to me they turned their backs and not their faces, but in their hour of calamity they cries, "Arrive and save us." So here they're saying that basically that a stone is their mother, or that it's connected to their mother. And so this is a definite connection to the stone of Kabbalah. But then the other things that I wanted to bring up was, so the Day of Reeds, which it takes place. When is this?
Oh, that's December. Or I'm sorry, March 22nd.
Okay, now think about this. So there's the blood, and then there's the washing off, right?
Yeah. 25th, the Day of Blood, which marks the day that Attis dies, followed by 3 days of mourning, and then the Day of Washing, which is the day of rejoicing.
Okay,
so that to me is like that's just so. By the way, 27th Day of Washing. That's like there's so, that motif is so apparent, the death and resurrection thing. But go ahead, sorry.
So also before we get into this, because this is going to be like a huge mind blow, I also want to address that there's a part where, I mean, this isn't that big of a surprise. So you are children of the Lord Yahweh. You shall not gash yourselves or shave the front of your heads because of the dead. For you are a people consecrated to the God Yahweh, your Lord, your God Yahweh chose you from. Anyway, so basically here there's this prohibition on shaving the heads for the dead, or so it's interesting there that it says for the dead. So in that context, it's saying, I wonder if that's connected to the whole tradition of weeping for Tammuz or weeping for Baal, because there was even a point where the God of Israel was believed to be dying and rising. And that's probably with a connection to Baal, and that's why he says, "You will no longer call me Baali, you will call me Ishi, my man, not my Lord." So the other interesting thing was, so we're talking about this Day of Blood, and so what that bring up to me was the I'm not going to bring it up here because I don't know exactly what I should look for, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. But basically, so you have so this connection with the Day of Reeds, and a lot of people get it wrong. It's not. Someone even mentioned this. It's not the sea. It's not the Red Sea. It's the Sea of Reeds.
I'm sorry, I said 22nd. That's the tree. That's the day they bring the tree in. It's the Day of Reeds, the 15th. Okay.
Oh, okay, perfect. Actually, should I bring up the tree thing after? Yeah, because we're already getting into this. So you have so the reed enters. So in this you have the how it typically gets translated in English is the Red Sea, but it's actually the Sea of Reeds. Yam Suf.
Oh wow.
There's no connection to red. It's connected to reed or to scroll.
That's such a weird pun that they're both red and reed, and they're both not even like the Sea of Reeds. It's called the Sea of the Red Sea, but also the reed enters, and then you have the Day of Blood, which is red. I'm just saying that sounds kind of weird, but like maybe that's a stretch, but like I don't know.
So what I'm thinking is, what would have the Day of Blood been in the context of Passover, which would have taken place around the same time of year?
Putting blood on the wall, because you're talking about in the Old Testament context.
Yeah.
Putting blood on the wall of the lamb.
Okay,
and it protects the firstborn from death from the destroyer, which is very weird why they chose that word destroyer.
Also, remember what we were talking about, or with a clip, your son will be protected.
Yeah.
So there's the connection with the blood and being protected. But on top of that, so think about this. What happens after they do that? What did they do after they're saved from the angel of death?
The Exodus.
And where do they exodus through?
Through the sea.
They're washed.
Oh, holy shit. That's actually a good one, dude. I like that. That might be something to that. I wonder what. Man, every time that you come up with these interesting theories, I'm always thinking of like which scholars I should text tonight and ask them about it and see what they think. Like that's how I do my research. I come with you. We do a bunch of insane brainstorming. We just go like we just splatter paint all over the wall and then say when something sticks, we're like, ooh, I'm gonna text Josh Bowen real quick and see what he thinks about this one. Sometimes I'll be like, nah, that's dumb. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But like that's how like I think people like you and me who are amateurs, this is how we can connect with scholars who are like specialists or something. But like we're allowed. All right, so the best thing I heard before was from Dr. McDonald, where he told me when I first started talking to Dr. McDonald, he told me one day, he's like, you're really immersed in these texts. He's like, I really appreciate how you really. He goes, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something. He said, you're like a fox that'll go into like garbage cans and look for food. And like, you'll climb into a tree, you'll go into a ditch. You might even go in the water and swim around. He said, but us specialized scholars, we're like groundhogs. We do not move from our hole, but we go so deep that you can't get down there. You're too big and too clumpy. We go deep, but we stay in our hole. We stay in our specialized areas. So Assyriologists stay in their Assyriologist stuff. Classicists stay in classicist stuff, and they stick to their thing. But they go in that one area. There's no one that goes deeper than them. So the fox's job is to go from the fox's job. We're foxes. Our job is to go to the different groundhogs and see what they got, and go from different groundhog to groundhog, and bring them stuff or stuff like that. It's interesting, but yeah. I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah.
Oh yeah. So one of the things I did want to definitely bring up. So there's this connection that actually here. Let me pull up the was it the Argonautica first? Oh yeah, here it's right here. So here, what was it? Oh, Vine, right? Okay, so here, let me make sure I'm finding the right reference. Okay, so here. So the
thanks Anonymous.
Apollonius Rhodius, Argonautica 1, translated by Rio. It's Greek epic, circa 3rd century BC. The Argonauts celebrate the orgies of the Metarteon, the mother of the gods, on Mount Didymnos near Kyzikos in Mysia. Standing in the woods, there was an ancient vine with a massive trunk withered to the roots. They cut this down to make a sacred image of the mountain goddess. What's interesting here is one of the epithets for God in the Hebrew Bible is El Shaddai. And people want to make it mean El Shaddad, like essentially the destroyer, or like the Almighty God, with the implication that he can destroy everything. But literally, it's Shaddai, like the breasts. Shad is breast. And so there's a possibility that's referring to Shaddai, the two breasts, as in the two mountains. You have like the Mount of Blessing and the Mount of Curse, or you have Mount Sinai and Mount Zion, or even, Mount Ida in Phrygia and Mount Ida in Crete. But what's interesting here is that, so if El Shaddai means God of the breasts or God of the mountains, then there's this possible connection to the sacred image of the mountain goddess. And so it says, and when Argos had skillfully shaped it, they set it up on a rocky eminence under the shelter of some tall oaks, the highest trees that grow, and made an altar of small stones nearby. They crowned with oak leaves. Then crowned with oak leaves, they began the sacrificial rites, invoking the Meter Dindymene, mother of Mount Didymnos, most worshipful, who dwells in Phrygia, and with her Titias and Kylenos, for they too are singled out as dispensers of doom and assessors to the Meter Edea, mother of Mount Ida. Jason, pouring libations on the blazing sacrifice, earnestly besought the goddess to send the stormy winds elsewhere. At the same time, by command of Orpheus, the younger men in full armor moved round in a high-stepping dance.
Man of Orpheus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he was one of the Argonauts.
Oh, that's right. That's true. Okay. I'm just, I don't know why. Okay, yeah.
So this is interesting. The younger men in full armor moved around in a high-stepping dance, beating their shields and with their swords to drown. That sounds a lot like the Sali.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what that is. That's the same imagery.
So to drown the ill-omened cries that came up from the city, whereas the people were still wailing for their king, i.e. Kyzikos, king of the Doliones, who was accidentally killed by the Argonauts. This is why the Phrygians to this day propitiate Rhea with a tambourine and drum, the goddess they invoked to observe the flawless sacrifice with pleasure. And so where this connects to is, here, I'm going to just go to some of the references. So, justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving to you. You shall not set up a sacred post of any kind, a pole beside the altar of the god. And so these poles are, like, in many contexts, are referred to as trees. But let's see, it should be down here that you have, Jeremiah further. So this is Jeremiah. Jeremiah further said to all the people and all the women, hear the word of the Lord, all Judeans. Interesting, Judeans, Idaeans, maybe. I mean, it's
Yeah.
In the land of Egypt, all Judeans in the land of Egypt. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. You and your wives have confirmed by deed what you spoke in word. We will fulfill the vows which we made to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and to pour libations to her. So fulfill your vows, perform your vows.
Wow.
And then I'm trying to see if I can find the reference to. Oh yeah, here. He brought out the image of Asherah from the house of the Lord. So the fact that he burned it, it's also implying that it's made out of wood, but probably that it's a tree. Let's see. There was. Oh yeah, here you see the connection with breasts. But what I wanted to look for specifically was here. I found a carved image. So in Exodus, it's saying you are not to make for yourself a carved image of any figure that is in the heavens above. Oh, no, here it is. So, sorry, one second. Oh, no, carved tree, that's what I looked for, sorry. So here, Mishneh Torah for Avodah Zarah. So here, let's see. It is for, what is this? Okay, carved tree. That's why I need to look for carved tree. Maybe it's here. Okay. It is forbidden to benefit from a tree which was planted for the purpose of being worshipped. This is the Asherah that the Torah mentions. When a tree which has been planted previously was pruned and carved for the sake of idol worship, even if it was extended or a growth was grafted onto the trunk of the tree and branches grew, one must cut off these branches, and benefit from them is forbidden. The remainder of the tree, however, is permitted. Similarly, when a person bows down to a tree, even though the tree itself is not forbidden, it is forbidden to benefit from all the branches, leaves, sprouts, and fruits which it produces during the time it is worshipped. Then it says, when Gentiles guard the fruits of a tree and say that they are designated to be used to make alcoholic beverages for a particular pagan temple, and the fruits are used for alcoholic beverages, which are drunken on their pagan holidays, it is forbidden to benefit from this tree. This is the ritual associated with an Asherah. Accordingly, we can assume that
so you definitely laid it out. That's I think you're right, bro. Because Asherah Rhea or Kybele being identified with this tree, where Attis castrates himself and dies. Here's another depiction in Latin. And yeah, dude, there's definitely and so Asherah is connected with the tree, and so is the Great Mother. And I think that's a very specific attribute. Like, I don't think that's like a vague, widespread. That's specific. When you have a goddess who's the who's the queen of the gods, they're both called queen of the gods, and they're both associated with this tree. I think you're onto something there. You know?
So, could you pull up the Arnobius text real quick, because I think that has a direct parallel to
the Arnobius. Oh yeah. Where did I put that one? Yeah, here we go. What are the little branches of the tree decked and girt round with garlands of violets? Do they not signify how the mother adorned the pine with the earliest blossoms as a memorial and testimony of her sad misfortune?
Oh, real quick. So this is interesting. It's saying the pine with the earliest blossoms, but at least in Jewish tradition, that's the almond. That's why you have this association with, like, I don't know. That's interesting that there's that like distinction.
Yeah, I'm looking around right now for my Ovid's Metamorphosis book. I don't know where I put it, but and right before they talk about Adonis and Kinnerus, they talk about all the gods and which tree they're associated with. So you get like it's like a lot of it's like 20 of them, and it's like almond tree, pine tree, laurel tree, ivy tree, almond basically they just name a whole bunch of them, and like Dionysus is the vine, Apollo is the laurel, and so like they're all lined up like that. And so with this Roman mythology, it's the opposite of the Jewish law, where you can't have any trees to worship it. Like they're like, yeah, worship trees, that's cool, do it. It's the opposite.
Well, but that's the thing. Originally, it was permitted. The thing is, the second temple, where you have the institution of the Yahwist priesthood, then there's like, they're basically controlling the land. It's kind of like how, it didn't used to be illegal to use cannabis, and then the government decided that they were going to make it illegal.
You know what my hypothesis behind why they did that is that when you unify a land, like you want the people who live 50 miles away from your temple. You have it's like you're an elite, you're a noble, you're running the government, you're running the treasury, you're printing the money, you're the one who has all the power, right? And you're living in Jerusalem. And the people that live all the way in the north, you don't know who they're siding with, you don't know who they're aligned with politically, you don't know. By getting them to worship one God and to not have any idols and to only focus on the God that's in your temple, you're keeping them in the fold of your world. It's like a mental thing. Like if they don't have another God, they could, like, you can have them paying taxes and worshiping another God. That might work. But to really get them to stay inside your circle of influence, they only worship this God, and they can't even have an image of the other gods. That's how you get someone to stay in your circle of influence. I think that I would love to hear if anyone thinks any otherwise, but I can't see another reason why they would do that.
I was actually talking with Graham about this, and his theory was really interesting. That it basically has to do with, so the temple represents like this central hub, and then the Asherah poles are almost like the nodes. And so you have this understanding that, before, when you have both the temple or temples, and then you have the Asherahs, where you don't have to go up to the temple in order to experience the spirit of God. Yeah. But that's kind of, it's almost like the same idea
that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good point.
So it's almost like, because you also have this understanding that there's a similarity with like even houses of worship. So for instance, it's like in Islam, you don't have to go on Hajj in order to fulfill, it is, a duty, but it's not like you don't somehow, miss out, like you're not damned if you don't go on Hajj, but it is kind of an extra, experience.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. This was Michelle, thank you for the super chat. Did you say that you had a text about the Indian origins of Israel? I did. Thank you for reminding me. I just emailed it to myself, actually. Do you want to get right into this real quick? This is interesting.
Definitely. And I think my favorite part, well, not my favorite part, but I found evidence for this possibly within the Bible.
Oh wow! So if you want to pull that up while I'm reading this, that'd be cool. It's up to you though. I'll read it. I'm just going to read it though. This is a really interesting passage from Josephus, by the way. At first I couldn't remember who it was from, but it's Josephus. So here it is. Here's what it says. Let me just but Clearchus, the peripatetic. By the way, whenever you see the word peripatetic, it's Aristotelian. It's Aristotle's school of philosophy. That's what that word means. So, anyways, the peripatetic philosopher, in his first book concerning sleep, attributes to Aristotle the philosopher statements such as follows concerning the Jews, writing word for word thus. Okay, so it's not Josephus. Josephus is quoting someone else. He's citing the Clearchus. So here it is. But though it would be too long to tell the greater part, it will not be amiss to go through those of his statements which are alike marvelous and philosophical. Now, said he, understands clearly. Hyperichides, I shall seem to you to relate what is as marvelous as dreams. Then Hyperichides modestly replied, yes, that is the very reason why we call all desire to hear it. Well then, said Aristotle, according to the rule of the rhetoricians, let us first describe the man's origin, that we may not disobey the teachers of the narrative style. Tell it so. Well then, the man was by origin a Jew from Kole, Syria, which means hollow Syria. It's basically like North Israel and Lebanon. Anyways, now those are descendants of the philosophers of India. And the philosophers, it is said, are called among the Indians Kalani. But among the Syrians, they are called Judeans, having taken their name from the place. For the place which they inhabit is called Judea. And the name of their city is very awkward. They call it Hiroshlium. So that's pretty much what the whole point was. But anyways, that's interesting. And Josephus doesn't like refute it. He just goes, that's pretty cool. It's like the Tacitus thing, where Tacitus says the Jews are from Crete. And everybody's just like, probably not, but that's cool. Like nobody really cares. It's just like an extra theory that's added on. But like, what do you think about this? And you said you found something in the Bible about this?
Multiple things.
Interesting. I did not know that.
In Genesis and Amos and in Isaiah.
Hold up.
Yeah, so it doesn't directly connect. Well, so there is one thing that I think you could argue is more connected than the others, but it's still like it's not like as sure as we'd like. But here, so this is Genesis 10:10. So also something that might support this is a connection to. So basically, the theory is that there's some connection to to the Indian subcontinent, and with that, various theories. So, like for instance, one of the things I think we're talking about was how the mention of the destroyer, how that kind of fits with the whole concept of Shiva, and then I forget what else. But anyway, so here it says the descendants of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush were Seba. And Havilah and Sabta, Rama. Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely so like Rama. You could also connect possibly with India, but anyway. So and Sabteka, the descendants of Rama were. So here it's not Saba, it's Sheva, Vededan. Cush also begot Nimrod, who was the first mighty figure on earth. He was a mighty hunter by the grace of Yahweh. Yeah.
Are you saying? What I'm trying to understand? Where's the Indian reference at?
It's further down, but
okay.
Right here you have Sheba or Shiva, and possibly also Rama. But so he was a mighty hunter by the grace of God. Hence the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter by the grace of God. The mainstays of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Kalne.
Oh, the Kali thing is what you're saying. Kalani. That might. What is it? How do you? Where's the Hebrew word again? Point to it.
Let's see.
Kalane. Oh yeah, Kalani. It might be Kalani.
Yeah, because keep in mind the way it's
dude, that's a good find right there. I'm gonna have to show someone that.
Yeah, so keep in mind that it's vocalized this way because of the Masoretic tradition, but it's entirely possible. I mean, keep in mind, there's the idea of a pluriform interpretation that there's 70 or possibly even more faces of the Torah. So who's not to say that it also means that?
Sure. The whole Shiva thing, I think that might be a stretch because I don't think those two words, one of them means 7 in Hebrew, and then Shiva in Sanskrit is something totally different.
True, but the thing is, if we're talking about when you're translating a tradition from one culture to the next, even if it's the same culture going from one culture to another, it's entirely possible that you have like
It means auspicious one in Sanskrit. But no, go ahead.
But basically that you could not only have the translation or the meaning get brought over, but sometimes it's also just the name. So it might be that it's, like for instance, with there was this one reference that Graham found to, we were reading through it, and it was Asar Apis, the Lord of Apis. And it's referring to Joseph. But if you read it without the space, it's Sarapis.
Right. So, but I wonder if there is a connection between Shiva and anything that has to do with 7. That would be interesting if you found that.
So here's the other references though. So this is in Amos. You who are at ease in Zion, and confident on the hill of Samaria, you notables of the leading nation on whom the house of Israel pin their hopes. Cross over to Kalne and see. Go from there to Great Hamat, and go down to the Gat of the Philistines. Are you better than those kingdoms, or is their territory larger than yours? And so interesting. Cross over to Kalne, go there to Great Hamat, and then to God. This is basically talking about going from Babylon to the land of Israel. And one of the things that's interesting here is it says Ivru Kalne. Ivru means to cross over. Ivru is where the term ever, so technically avar is where Ivru and ever comes from, and ever is Hebrew. So So here you might have like possibly a connection, like it's Ivru Kalne, like maybe it's like crossing. I don't know, but it's definitely something to look into. And then here's the last one. So let's see. I send him against an ungodly nation. I charge him against a people that provokes me, to take its spoil and seize its booty, and to make it a thing trampled, like the mire of the streets. But he has evil plans. His mind harbors evil designs, for he means to destroy, to wipe out nations, not a few. And so here you do have this, like, it's very clear the destroyer, type of typology is very clear here. But so for he thinks, after all, I have kings as my captains. Was Kalno any different from Karshemish, or Hamat from Arpad, or Samaria from Damascus? Basically, it's saying is, are your, okay, this is interesting. I'm going to have to look into this, but I wonder if Hamat had a Israelite population, because if that's the case, I think this is saying, are you any different from them? Because it's set up.
You know what? I was looking something up real quick, and so there's this theory that about the whole Josephus thing, that if there is a connection, it's with these people right here, and these are the people called the wait, what did I just say they were again?
Harappan?
Yeah, the Harappan, and they basically are like Elamite neighbors, and they're Semitic people, but they're also very very mixed with, like, Indus River Valley people. So they dwell in the Indus Valley River, but they also have Semitic ties to like the world of like the Sumerians. Basically, the reason why you can tell is by looking at the writing system. You see that?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But this is going back. This is like 2500 BCE. This image right here. This is old. So which means, that means it's not that surprising, because when you go back that far, the world's population is so small. Everyone's basically related. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's basically living in either the Middle East or North Africa, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically where most of the population is what I'm getting at.
Okay, so I think there might be something to this, because so with this whole like paralleling, you have Kalno any different from Karshemish. So Karshemish is the fortress of Chemosh, a Hittite capital northeast of Israel on the Euphrates River, captured by Pharaoh Necho and then from him by Nebuchadnezzar. So is Karshemish any different from Kalno, which is the fortress of Anu? And maybe there's this context of it's the fortress of Anu. It's basically the fortress of God because Anu is the high god. And then is Arpad? I think Arpad's in Persia. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it is.
So is Arpad any different from Hamat? Hamat is a principal city of Upper Syria in the valley of the Orontes. So I'm going to have to look up this to see if there's any connection to the Israelites there. And then is Damascus any different from Samaria? And so here, if this is the case, it almost seems like you have the Israelites versus the non-Israelites. It's like,
yeah, that's basically what they're saying. A dual. It's like they're splitting those two apart. Yeah,
and
makes
so
sense.
if that's the case, you could argue that this example of Kalno might be saying that Kalno was, not just Semitic, because obviously they were all Semitic, but that it had this connection to the Israelites. And if that's or maybe it was one of the places where the Israelites were sent. I don't know. Maybe so. Actually, this would be one alternative theory. Maybe the association with the Kulani or the Kalne is a result of some of the Israelites being exiled to there. I think there's probably something more than that there, but it's entirely possible that could explain it.
Wow, interesting stuff. Something to think about. Oh yeah. Before we go, let me share my screen because 1 second.
Ooh, this is interesting. Simsum said 7 branches of the menorah, 7 planets, 7 notes, 7 colors. 7 is the number of nature in Jewish thought. 8 is the supernatural number, like the Hanukkah candles burning for 8 days. Brit Milah on the 8th day. Interesting.
Yeah, the number 7, man. We could do a whole video on the number 7. Maybe that's the next thing we should. That's a good idea. The number 7 is sacred all across the board, from the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Pythagoreans, the name it. 7, number 7. Like Deuteronomy says, when you slay the bull for the sin offering, sprinkle the blood 7 times on the horns of the altar. Why 7? I don't know. 7. It's always 7. 7 planets, maybe. I don't know. 7.
Circumambulate the city of Jericho 7 times, and the walls will come down.
Right. It's always 7. That's the ritual number. So thank you for that comment. And I think we can do that could be an interesting video. 7 chakras. Just said. Yep. Now let me ask you this. When does chakras become a thing?
Honestly, I don't know enough about Indian or Vedic traditions.
I don't think they mention them in the Rig Veda at all. At least not to my knowledge. But that's I just thought about that. I don't know why.
So
when does chakras become a thing?
So one of the interesting things about this is that in Kabbalah, and you do see already in the Sefer Yetzirah, which this is already, I think it's 400 common year or so. So you see these ideas already in play. It's you have these 3 the supernal ones, which actually one person was asking, what's this connection between El and Saturn? And so interestingly,
I just found first text that mentioned chakras dating from 700 to 500 BCE. First mention of the word chakras. It's the Upanishads, of course. Duh. I should have known that. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Interesting. But so basically, so you have the 3 supernal sephirot, or emanations, which you have basically the one that's connected with God, that's basically beyond any human comprehension. Then you have wisdom, then you have understanding, and understanding or Bina, it's connected with the planet Saturn. And I actually had a debate with someone about this, and it seems like there's maybe multiple interpretations of this, but basically there's this understanding that at first you just have me, like God is just referred to as who, and it's basically you can't name God, you can only say the one who, and so eventually he creates what he creates his creation, but then there's also this idea of Elad, these, and so once you have it's also maybe even playing on this idea of not multiple gods but multiple personalities. And so once you have this Elah and me, which it means who and these, then you get this combination, this fusion into Elohim, because together that's what it means. And with that, you have the creation that the creation that emanates out from God as we understand it, within this the highest God, of the 7th planet or whatever. And so that might be the association between El or Elohim with the planet Saturn, because it's considered the highest planet. It's, the furthest.
Yeah. I don't know what I just did with that image, but I'm just gonna share. I'll share the screen actually. This is the last thing that I gotta go. I always love when people are critical of their own worldview. Like I love Dale C. Ellison Jr. He's a Christian, but he is so critical about certain things about Christianity. Historicity things. Did this happen? Did it not? Like, nah, people didn't come out of the graves. Matthew made that up. Like he's legit. And I just found this from the Academy. What is it called? Academy? Tantric Academy. And it's like 9 unbelievable myths about chakras busted. Chakra doesn't mean wheel. We don't have 7 chakras. The chakra colors are an ancient development. Chakras don't have to be open. There isn't just one chakra system. Chakras don't relate to glands. Chakras are not linked to psychological elements. Chakras are not a philosophy. We shouldn't identify with chakras. So just like, come on, guys. Like chakras is they're like, I don't know. I don't know what they think about chakras, but like, it's just funny how like some people. I like that approach to things. You should have that approach to everything in life. You know what I mean? Because you get this a lot of time in New Age. The chakras, the Kundalini serpent that lives inside of you. It sounds all cool and great, but like, is it practical? Is it working? Does it make you feel better? Is it just fluff? I don't know. I'm down. I legitimately want to explore some of this stuff with people who believe it, not just to be critical, but like I like to have on people from different viewpoints. The last thing I ever would do is say is I'm anti-theist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and one of the things I find really interesting is you even have some parallels within like Kabbalah and the Sephirah. Because they're understood as not, so they exist in, like, they're represented in our reality, but they also exist beyond our reality. So it's not like you can't find, it's more so like stuff that represents it. It's very connected to the idea of like, essentially like the idea of Platonic forms, that there is, but it's not like so static. It's more so just the way, I don't know. I'm not doing a good job explaining it, but something that So Sim said chakras are not Sephirot either. Yeah, totally agree. One thing that I saw though, where was it? It was, Anthony Medford said Shiva is not a creator; he is a destroyer, and I think that's interesting because I think that probably in the original understanding, which is probably considered very heretical nowadays, is that the creator god was Asherah, or the Shekhinah, because it literally says that, God created the world through wisdom, and wisdom is the Shekhinah.
Right.
And so with this, the creator of the world is feminine, and then the one who destroys is much more, it's seen more as masculine, even though there is also understandings that it's kind of, there's a lot of gender bending. So for instance, the Shekhinah is also referred to as like Lord and Master. And so even with that, she's also the destroyer sometimes. But so like with that, you also have the potential that there's that influence from, for instance, like maybe, Kali and Shiva, as well as, the creative, or the the creative, or the beneficial sides of like the masculine and feminine. So it's like you see them both reflected, good and bad.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a really good point. Yeah, man, we've been rocking for almost 2.5 hours, and I always love doing these conversations with you. We'll do another one soon.
Just a few things to leave off on. I mean, I have to admit, I'm very skeptical of these types of like, ooh, they sound similar, therefore they must be connected.
Right.
But there is something that's really interesting with the name. So Abraham. So, there's another thing. So I've been looking
Abraham and Sarah, the Saraswati thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting.
But not only that, you can even look at some connections within the ancient Near Eastern world. So originally his name was Avram, which means high father, or like exalted father. But then his name becomes Avrahamon, the father of Hamon, the father of many. And so in this context, Hamon's being understood as, it's many, but with this, there might be something else going on there, because it purposefully gets shortened to Avraham from Avrahamon, probably because they didn't want, whether it was this connection or whether it was just a similar sound, they didn't want the connection with Hamon.
Let me ask you this, and this is totally out of random. I'm just wondering. Like I used to be into. I have tons of Kabbalah books behind me. I have all these different Sefer, Yetzirah, Sefer. I had like 20 of them. Sefer something. Like there's just like a bunch of shit in there. And I was deep into this, after coming out of Christianity. I didn't go to atheism right away. I went to checking out all these different Gnostic stuff, checking out all these different Kabbalists. But when I'm reading through Kabbalah texts, and I'm going to ask you this: what is the practical? What does Kabbalah do for people? What's the practicality behind it?
So, essentially, from the way I understand it, it's not bringing God down to earth, because the understanding is that God is everywhere, but it's more so like
categorizing it, right? It's like a categorizing system.
It's not just
that's how it felt for me. It just felt like I was putting things in boxes. It's like, oh, this is Doth, this is that, and I was just categorizing things. Like it's like a nice neat little category thing, basically.
So it's more so like, it might seem that way, but it's kind of like when you're out in the world. So for instance, for instance, there's something that's really interesting. So there's this thing called Gimilut Chasadim. It's like giving, or I think it's like acts of kindness. And so what's interesting is that the letter Gimel is associated with the Sephira of Chesed. So Gimilut Chasadim, like there's a lot of like deep like word plays going on there. I like what Tzimtzum says. Kabbalah is the Torah decoded, and on one hand, I do recognize that some of it is influenced by other cultures, but I also think that it's very reductionist to say that Kabbalah is just Jewish. That's just Jewish Gnosticism, or that's just Jewish Neoplatonism, because there's more to it than that. There's definitely like similarities and parallels, and not to say that they aren't connected, but just that it's not just that. It's not just slapping on Gnosticism and giving it a Jewish flavor. It's literally like interpreting. Let's see.
I have to ask now, because I'm reading some of the comments about Torah being like DNA, Kabbalah being like genes. In what way? Like, what do we? What? It's. I get what they're saying, but like, how do you show that? For example, and I don't mean to put you on a spot. You don't have. Yeah. You could just we can do this next time if you want. But I'm legitimate, like, because I don't know. I'm just wondering what is like. Maybe it's just something different. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what's so great about it. It's something different.
Yeah, it's not. What it is, it's not trying to force reality to fit the Bible. Rather, it's understanding the Bible within the sake of reality, or within the perspective of reality. So it's like there's certain like the explanation for certain miracles make a lot more sense within a Kabbalistic understanding, because like in a lot of cases you have ideas that are like beyond, like whether that's because they're supernatural or because they're just beyond really human understanding, they get kind of translated into esoteric motifs. So like whether that's, say, a fire coming out from the heavens and causing the altar of Elijah to erupt, did that really happen? Well, yes, it did, but the question is, how did it happen, and what does it mean that it happened?
Sure.
So it's kind of like looking at stuff through an understanding of the Torah, rather than trying to make like these. And I think this may be one of the problems. The way that many modern people interpret their religion, regardless of whether that religion is, they tend to look at the world, and then they tend to look at the religion through the eyes, or like through a filter of the world they live in. And the thing with Kabbalah is it forces you to kind of give up all these modern ideas and just think about like the most basic, like esoteric and like symbolic meanings behind these things.
Interesting. We'll definitely explore that later too. I'm gonna play for the outro. If in case you missed the beginning of this video, I played the clip from HBO Rome, and it's the Great Mother ceremony. So you have just attained true gnosis.